do a wee bit of a somatic warm-up on the back, and today we are playing with trunk rotation, or you might think of it as twist, as the relationship between your pelvis and the rib cage changes. That's the definition of a twist. You can twist from the rib cage, you can twist from the pelvis, or you could twist a little bit from both. So we'll play with that a wee bit. But we're going to have a nice soft start. So you can lie on your back, you could keep your feet on the mat, take a moment to wiggle a little bit from the hips or from the ribs, so that as if you want to make a body print onto your mat, so you can sense the contact to the ground. Maybe the hands want to rest somewhere on the body as you are making these steps of connection and feeling what's present. So we always want to take a moment to see what we come onto the mat with. And there's layers to that. There's the somatic layer, the soma, meaning the body that you can sense from that first-hand experience of sensations. And then there's, of course, our thoughts, the movement of the breath, the pace and rhythm of your breath. So take a couple of moments to see what your energy level is, so you can make wise choices as we start to move. And you might need a little bit longer for this, so that goes throughout the practice. You can linger at any exercise longer, or you can stay shorter. I'm going to slowly introduce our pelvic rock movement. So hands could be on your hip bones, so you can feel that that's where the movement originates from. The lower back is going to arch away from the ground, and the lower back is going to press or flatten onto the ground. You'll feel your hip bones or your kind of the pelvis moving, and that pelvic tilting forward and tilting backward is what's going to create that lower back movement. You match it with your breath. So the inhale is the arching part, and the exhale is the flattening part. And we'll go a few more rounds as always. It's a way to do this very softly and very watery, I call it. So I'm not adding too much pressure down through the feet. So I'm finding my soft edges first. And then you could start to bring in a little bit more pressure down through the heels as you press the lower back onto the mat, and just noticing what is the effect of that. Where can you sense engagement? And you could press your tailbone a little bit more into the mat as you arch your lower back away from the ground. And I'll just go a few more rounds with that. I'm going to slowly add hands behind the head, and we are starting to find our first rotation from here, which involves some core work as well. So I'm going to leave the lower back first in that natural arching, so that there's the natural curve of the lower back. And then arch the lower back away from the ground on the inhale. My hands are interlocked behind the head, and you could press the backs of your elbows onto the ground a little bit, maybe even sliding your shoulder blade towards each other, so you're exaggerating, you're feeling that front body opening. And then as you exhale, as your lower back moves towards the ground, begin to bring your right elbow towards your left knee. So you go across the body, and I'm going to keep my feet grounded for that. And then I'm going to slowly lower down onto the ground. So it might take several breaths to come back onto the ground. And today I'm going to go side to side. So in between, I'm going to arch, take a breath. And when you're ready, then the next curling is going to be left elbow towards the right knee. So I'm curling from side to side. Now I want you to find your own tempo. What we're doing here is I'm really slowing down the descent down to the ground. So I want to feel there's a contraction through the front body across the body, these cross body diagonals, and then I'm slowly releasing as if there's a wee bit of a resistance coming back to the ground. So it's a specific way to, first of all, create that mind-body connection, but then also a way to reestablish the relaxed baseline in our myofascia, muscles and fascia. So I'll go one more time to each side with this pattern. I want to feel that curl. If you can, track the across the body sensation from the left to right. And the next time when you're on the ground, pause. You could for a moment release the hands from underneath your head and take a couple of breaths, so relaxing both shoulders, heavy down onto the ground. Take a little bit of a longer breath in and maybe let it move out through the mouth. Then I keep my hands wide and open to the sides, and I'll do just a few dropping of the thighs over to the right side. So I have my feet a bit wider, and I'm going to drop my knees over to the right. Head can roll to the left. I do that on the inhale, and then I return back on the exhale. So remember I say the twist can happen moving from the shoulders. So now the twist is happening, actually the pelvis is twisting relative to the shoulders. So feel your shoulders, your arms like these anchors down on the ground, and the movement happens with the thighs getting heavy as they sink towards the ground to the right of you. And I'm just going to go to the right a couple of more times. Again, the slower the better right now as we are sensing and warming up. Good. And then next time when the knees drop, I'm going to circle my left arm around me so that I can actually roll onto my right side. So I'm going to stack my thighs, if you need to wiggle a little bit, to be back on your mat. So left knee resting on top of the right knee. Left thigh on top of the right thigh, and I'll take my top hand, left hand, to be behind my head. I'll begin to bring the left elbow towards the ground in front of you, so my chest curls, my forehead comes closer to the ground, and then I'm going to open the left elbow to the space back behind me. I'm not going to force anything. The elbow doesn't have to come anywhere near the ground. And so roll like this a few times. So now again we are rolling from the upper body as the shoulders curl open. And I'm going to let that top knee, if it wants to slide, if it wants to lift, I'm going to let it. So I'm not going to force the hips to stay steady. Go a few more times and just kind of feel your trunk, your rib cage rolling. Curling open to a comfortable spot. And then there's this curling forward towards the ground. Let's go one more round with this, and then we'll add to it a little bit. Excellent. Next time when my left elbow is coming in front of me towards the ground, I'm going to take my left leg, I'm going to straighten it towards the foot end of the mat and then slightly back behind me. So now I feel a diagonal from my left elbow to my left heel. Take a breath here. Then when you begin to open the elbow to the space back behind you, bring your left knee towards your chest. Right? So we do this propeller movement, one version of it. So I'll oscillate between the two, finding the diagonal where the leg is straightening into the space back behind me, and then curling open through the upper body while I bring the knee towards my chest. And the breath pattern here could be both ways. Experiment. Sometimes I like to open on the inhale, sometimes I like to open on the exhale. And then I'll give you a version that will engage your core a little bit more. But as you move the next few rounds, just kind of notice if that's what you're in the mood for. You can just stay here, more grounded. Or I'm going to lift, so everything is going to float up. The leg is going to lift a little bit. My upper body is going to lift off the ground a little bit. And so I stay slightly lifted up from the ground as I do that same movement. I support my head with my hand, so I'm not straining my neck overly. But both the leg and the upper body, as they move, they floating above the ground. Go one more round like this. And the next time when your elbow opens to the space back behind you, stay in the twist. So rest that left thigh on top of the right thigh. If you can, keep the hand behind the head if that works for you. We're going to do another movement from here in a moment. And if you need to let go of the back of the head, then place your hand wherever your shoulder feels the happiest. Take a breath in and feel that top side from the left armpit towards your left hip. Sometimes it is really helpful to even bring that tactile touch in. We're going to shorten that distance in a moment from the left elbow towards your left hip. So we're going to do a little bit of like a side push-up here in a moment, but take a breath into that side body, relax your jaw for a moment, relax that left shoulder, relax your head into the palm of your hand. And then on my next exhale, I'm going to start to shorten, as I said, the distance between my left armpit and left hip. So I'm going to lift again my head. I'm going to turn the elbow towards that left hip, and I'm going to really squeeze the armpit down and lifting the hip up, so that left side waist is going to get really small, that contraction here. And then we do the somatic lowering, releasing of that contraction. Slowly, I'm going to release back into that open twist, left elbow to the space back behind me, slowly. And we'll do that just one more time, so take your time, take another couple of breaths in the twist. Curl up, shorten that waistline, left elbow towards the left hip, but most importantly, that left armpit squeezing down towards the left hip, taking a breath. And then a slow release. So I'm releasing that side body contraction slowly. Keep the head supported by the palm. And then once you're on the ground, relax everything, even remove the hand. Take a breath into that side body. Take a breath out. Then slide the left foot behind the right foot so you can lift that left knee. Right knee lifts, pelvis comes back. You on your back again and take a little moment here. Either feet stay on the mat or you slide your legs straight. Feeling that left side, but we also kind of did cross body work. So you might feel it in different places. Again, a little interoceptive moment where we're letting things integrate, while we keep the connection of the attention, our mind, feeling, sensing the body. Beautiful. Going for that same sequence for the other side, where the feet come onto the mat, the arms open, feet are a little bit wider, and what we started with was the dropping of the knees to the left, head rolling to the right on the inhale, and coming back to the center on the exhale. So we call it the windshield wiper movement. And do that quite lazily. The weight of the legs. Feel that relationship with your pelvis to your shoulder girdle that is creating the rotation. And I'll go one more time with this pattern. And getting ready for that roll onto the left side. So what you can do is when the knees drop, the arm begins to circle around you, so you get a nice side body opening there, and then you lie on your left side. Again, get comfortable, stack your thighs, take your right hand behind your head, and begin to curl forward, elbow towards the ground in front of your face, and then elbow slowly opening. And start conservative, like don't go to the deepest rotation, just have little sweet rocking motions. Feel your rib cage turning. Let that top thigh lift or slide if it wants to. Feel the sliding and the gliding that needs to be there for in our fascia in order for this to be smooth. And then let's slowly begin to add the diagonal through the leg. So next time when your elbow is coming towards the ground, send that top leg, right leg, to the space back behind you. And the first ones we did, you can keep the foot grounded. Rather than lifted, you have the foot on the ground. Take a breath. As you begin to rotate open into the twist through the upper body, bring the knee towards your chest. And it could, again, the foot could be sliding on the ground. So sometimes I like to make like a semicircle with the big toe around me. If you have the space for that. Let's go a few more times with this, and you know where we're going. So if you found it interesting, more interesting in your body to lift up away from the ground, I'll do that in a moment, but you can have your own timing with that. Or stay with your contact to the ground more. So the option was to lift the leg and lift the upper body. As you curl. Open. And really reach the elbow and the heel away from each other as you come to that diagonal. Still smooth, still gentle, still not forcing it. Awesome. And then next time, when I'm in that twist, I'm going to relax the leg, the thigh on top of the left, and relaxing the head down. My elbow is slightly lifted, and as I said, if for a moment you need to let the hand go from behind the head, if the shoulder prefers that, then do that. I'm going to take a couple of breaths and feeling that side body, the top rib, the armpit towards the hip, my waistline. Again, if you want to practice like your fascia loves touch, so you could bring a little bit of stroking or just resting your hand somewhere to bring more breath and awareness to that area. Relaxing your jaw. And then we do that wee bit of a weird side body curling, armpit towards the hip. So we're trying to make the waistline short. And so I'll begin to lift my upper body. I'll turn a bit so I'm more sideways, elbow reaching down towards the hip. And most importantly, the armpit is squeezing down towards the hip, side body short. And then slowly I'll start to create that space again by releasing the contraction, by lowering, slowly opening the elbow, opening it to the side again. Take a breath once you're on the ground. See if you can relax the shoulder. And then do just one more. Do it slowly enough so you can feel it. Waistline short. Armpit hugging down. And then turning open. Releasing slowly. once I'm on the ground, relaxing, and this time letting the arm go from behind the head so it can just settle on the ground for the last couple of breaths of this sequence. And then step the right foot off the left foot, lift the right knee, let that movement begin to roll the pelvis again onto the ground, snuggle yourself back so you're on your mat, and let's take one more, like a little rebound moment, a little moment of reflection, noticing, letting everything soften, and your attention traveling through that right shoulder, feeling the rib cage, what's happening around that right hip area. Take a moment to also feel the whole body, what is your sense? And then we'll make our transition more upright from here, so you could bring your knees to your chest and have a little moment of rocking. We could roll from side to side, or you could roll up and down, so curling forward and back, whichever you prefer. Eventually, I'll meet you on all fours so that we can bring some movement in from that plane. We'll start again with our cat and cow movement, but letting it be more spontaneous, so you could start with up and down movement through the spine, but begin to discover what are some other ways that you can move from the ribs, how you can move from the spine. And if you feel a little bit more energy and want to move a bit more strongly, feel free to take the wiggle towards downward facing dog. So wiggling the hips, the shoulders, the rib cage, the spine. So a couple of more breaths with this. Good. And then let's bring the knees back to the ground. Let's do a couple of our rhomboid push-ups. So I'm saying that as if you know what it is. You might not. So I'm keeping my elbows straight, and I'm dropping my chest down between the hands, so my shoulder blades are going to come towards each other. And then I'm pressing down onto the hands, and I'm widening the upper back. So it's a really great one for upper back mobility, so shoulder blade mobility. But it also is stimulating the numerous lymph nodes that are around that armpit area. Let's go one or two more rounds. Good. And then pausing, and we'll do a few rotations where I'm threading the right hand under the left hand. I'm aiming the shoulder towards the ground, but I'm not putting it onto the ground because I'm going to stay moving. And I more keep the elbow bent as I rotate upwards. So we go a few times like this. We're going to combine it with another movement. So again, I find smooth rotation. My ribs rolling down towards the ground, that right side, and then right side lifting. Do that one more time. Good. And then place the right hand onto the ground for a moment. Send your right leg straight back towards the back of the mat with the toes tucked. Come onto the right fingertips, and now roll that right hip on top of the left hip, and at first keep your shoulders more facing towards the ground. Then lift the back heel back up and square the hips. So now rotating from the pelvis. So it's rolling open. I'm not forcing my ribs to stay like facing towards the ground, but I'm not lifting completely open yet. I'm going to do one more. And then next time when you have the right foot on the ground, stay there. You might want to send your left foot slightly behind you so you have a good kickstand there to help with the balance. feeling into that left shoulder blade, so I'm not sinking in. I'm finding a containment around the left shoulder, and then the right hand can lift up towards the ceiling. I keep my right foot firmly grounded, and I'm going to find this rotation now from here as I thread the right hand to the space back behind me. And then I lift it up, maybe even slightly back behind. See how the shoulder reacts to that. Keep stability through that left hand. Go a few more times, and then I'll give you another option from here, but you could stay with this one. So if you want to play with your balance a little bit, when I start to thread the hand under, I'm going to slowly, you could lift that right leg up is the first thing that you could add. And then I'm slowly going to rotate so the knee comes back down onto the ground. So I'm back in that all fours position when the arm threads under. So there's a little bit of shuffling on that left knee as well. And then I'm turning open. So it's a little bit more shuffling, and again, a little bit more core work to turn me slowly towards the ground to control the slow descent of the right knee. So if this doesn't, again, seem something you want to do today, then you'll stay for a few more rounds with the version where the right foot stays grounded, right? I'll do just one more. Whichever version you're in. And then let us all meet on all fours. I'm going to keep my hips on top of my knees, and I walk the arms forward. I'll have my forearms on the ground, so I'll be in an easy version of this. I'm not looking for too much stretch through the shoulders. And I'm going to do I make a fist, and also do some wrist movements from here, especially for that left wrist. So you could have the fists kind of facing each other, the fingers, and drawing the fists towards your inner arm, towards your inner wrist. So it could be moving like that. It could be making some circles. So give it a few rounds here. You could be squeezing your hands into a fist and then opening fingers wide. Squeezing hands into a fist, opening fingers wide. One more like that. And then let your bum slide back towards your heels. Your arms are dragging down with you. You can keep the arms facing forward as you're in child's pose, taking a breath in. And we'll go through a few rounds of coming to all fours on the inhale, like a little flow, tucking toes, lifting to downward facing dog as you exhale. Coming back to all fours on the inhale, lifting chest, and then untucking the toes, rounding the back, taking the bum back towards the heels as you exhale. One more like this, rounding to all fours. Lifting chest, sit bones, and beginning to lift the hips up, letting the head release downward, and then slowly, in your own tempo, bringing the knees back down, rounding the back, and then taking the bum back towards the heels. Let's meet back on all fours. Do about 5 of the rhomboid push-ups here to kind of keep the shoulder blades happy and to feel that movement. And then keeping the right hand grounded as you begin to do the rotational movement now through the left hand. So first both knees grounded, the arm threads through and then lifts up. You can keep the elbow bent when the arm lifts up. You can try different variations. Feel your rib cage. And last one. Take the hand back onto the ground. Send your left leg back. Keep the upper back now broad, so I'm not collapsing. As I have my left toes on the mat, I'm going to pivot so the left heel comes onto the mat. And then it lifts. My rib cage is going to lift a little bit, but I'm going to keep that left hand at first grounded, so I feel that the movement, the rotation is from the pelvis. Go one more time. And next time when you open the heel, pause. Send again the right foot slightly back behind you if you need that balance. Take care of your right shoulder as you take your left arm up. Find your stability first before you bring the rotation in, the trunk rotation, the rib cage rotation, so the left hand threading to the space back behind you, the left arm opening up towards the ceiling or maybe even into the space behind you, like from the top position. So go a few more times, go slowly enough so you can feel this. You don't have to do the same that you did on the other side. So we had that more dynamic variation, so you could switch into it at any time. So that had the left leg lifted, and it had that little rotation, both feet facing back as you thread the arm under. So it kind of is combining these both movements, the gate pose into that tabletop twist. See what feels like an appropriate choice this morning. And I'll go just one more. And then let's meet on all fours. Once more, keep the bum on top of your knees. Take your arms forward. Have little movements for the fists here. Circling, drawing the fists down towards the inner wrist and then away from the inner wrist, especially on that right side, right? And then squeezing the wrist, opening the hand, fingers wide, squeezing it into a fist, opening fingers wide, one more. And this time, rather than letting the bum move back, I'm going to have my forearms on the ground. As I lift my head, I'm going to start to bring my weight forward. We're going to come all the way down onto the belly, resting through the shoulders, little wiggle through the hips. Taking a breath. And take your hands from here behind your head, fingertips touching the back of the head. Lift your elbows up towards the ceiling however much you can so you feel the backs of the shoulders active. On your inhale, lift your chest up away from the ground any amount. And our little rotation, tapping the right elbow down, tapping the left elbow down. So going like this from side to side. One or two more. Good, and then release. Take the hands back from underneath your forehead. Have a little wiggle through the hips, through the shoulders. Take a breath in. Take a slow breath out. Now keep the arm position, forehead at the back of the hands, elbows to the sides, grounded. Slowly lift your right leg up, the straight leg. Feel the back of the leg active. And then begin to reach the right leg into the space to the left of you. So cross, so your right hip lifts off the mat, but the right elbow stays like an anchor. So again, one more diagonal from that elbow to the leg. Again, just the amount that feels good in your lower back area. Take a breath into that diagonal. And then slowly begin to release the hip, release the leg. Let the leg become heavy. Take a breath in, take a breath out. Same thing on the left side at your own pace, at your own time. Begin to lift and take that moment to feel the action of lifting that leg, maybe sensing your bum, the hamstring at the back of that left leg, and only then begin to cross the left leg over the right leg at any height. reaching it into the space. Ooh, I'm hitting a wall here. Reach it if you can, ground through the left elbow. Take a breath into the space. So now again we have the rotation starting from the pelvis, and then a slow release. Slow release. Slow release. Letting the leg get heavy, letting it drop back into the ground. Take another breath in. Take another breath out. On your next inhale, begin to lift your forearms. So my head is still at the back of the hands. I lift my forearms and my chest on the inhale. Then I squeeze the elbows down towards my waistline as I exhale. I bring the hands under the shoulders. I keep them hovering for a moment so I feel my back body strength. And then option to add hands pressing down and lifting into a cobra that feels good in your lower back. So lower, higher, maybe little movements again through the shoulder blades. See what changes if you press your feet a little bit more onto the ground, your pubic bone a little bit more onto the ground. Take a breath in. And then slowly release back onto the ground. Come back to all fours. Take your hands under the shoulders, knees under the hips. Round your back, curl your tailbone under. Create as much space in your back body as you can, and then breathe in into that back body space. Inhale into the back body space. And then exhale. Let yourself sit back onto your heels, forehead back on the ground. We're going to change just our position to the ground just for a moment. So I'm going to curl up with my hands closer to my knees, so not quite on all fours, and I'll tuck my toes under. We're going to come to a forward fold. So I'm going to roll over my toes, so the soles of the feet are going to come onto the mat, lifting the hips. You can toe heel the feet wider. So just for a moment we are feeling into the back body. Knees can be soft. Letting your head tangle, adding any movement that feels good from here. So just a couple of breaths. Breathing into the back body, softening and bending into the knees. Just again, waking up that back body line. Good. And then walk your feet wider. We're coming into a squat, so if you know that you need some support under your heels, you could be folding up your mat so you have some support there for the ankles. Or if you have a block, you could be sitting onto a block. So I'm going to lower down, pausing here for a moment. Either hands on the ground or hands could come in front of your chest. Sending breath down into the hips. And I'll find one more rotation from here. So I keep my right hand in front, down on the ground in front of that right knee. And I don't let that knee buckle in. I take my left hand behind my head. I'll curl again the elbow down towards the right heel. And then elbow away any amount that feels good in your upper back, in your shoulder blade. So go a few times, curling down and curling open. I'll go one more time. And then I'll stay in that open position, but I find not my full range. I come out of it a little bit and I do little oscillations. So I do a little kind of millimeter in, millimeter out, not millimeter, like a couple of centimeters. I do a little bit of on the spot, in, out, kind of like playing, baby stepping around my edge there. Just one more. And then I'll release that side. I'll take my left hand now down, creating traction there between the arm and the knee. Hand behind the head. First sweeping the elbow down and then right elbow up. Sit on something if it starts to become too much for the ankles or if your knees complain. You could also do this from cross-legged seat if the squat is not working for you. And then I'll open the elbow up. I find a soft edge, so not my maximum rotation there, and I'll come out of that a little bit and I lean into it a little bit. Good. Next time, exhale yourself towards the ground. Take the hands back behind you so that you can sit down. Release your legs forward. Give them a wee bit of a shake. And then decide how you want to finish. So do you want to lie onto your back? Do you want to stay seated and use the 3-4 minutes that we have here for a seated meditation as an ending for a shorter practice? There may be shapes that I didn't offer, so you might want to just continue without me, moving and finding different ways to rotate your trunk. In any case, I will hold space here for another 3-4 minutes. I'll guide you a little bit, but you could be doing your own thing, right? So whether you're seated or whether you're lying down, you're going to move your body around a little bit to let the body tell you where is that sweet spot of ease, where either the ground is supporting you or your bone structure is supporting you. You sensing the structure of the body, the form of the body, the shape of the body. But then also, is it possible to connect to the space within the body? And within that inner space, there's different experiences that are arising, sensations. In the inner space of your mind, the thoughts are arising. In the space of your hearing, different sounds are arising. And so is it possible to allow things to arise, to notice, but let them really kind of have their lifespan and then dissolve? So right now, connecting to what's here, but no grabby hands, needing to hold on to something, and also not needing to make anything wrong. Is it possible to hold space for whatever is present? However interesting or however boring our mind wants to label it. Even being able to witness the story of I want more of this or I want less of that. I like this, I don't like this. I can hold those stories as well. Wherever you are, can you soften through the palms of the hands, finding more space, spaciousness, openness, and receptivity first, just in the palms of your hands. And And then in a small way, can that translate or reach into a little bit more openness and softness in our heart. And even though our practice was a physical practice of moving, the aim of it ultimately was to help bring our attention to the sensations, to the felt sense, to each moment as it's felt through the body. So we can get accustomed to moving from that orientation, to remember to move from that orientation of what's present right now. Can I make space for it? And if you knew that this was the time you had and you want to slowly transition with me, I can meet you in seated if you're somewhere else in your position. And if you want to keep doing whatever it is you're doing and you have the luxury of time, then stay as you are. It's nice to have a little closing ritual, make it your own. Maybe the hand wants to rest somewhere on the body. Maybe there's a gesture that you like to use. Maybe there's an intention that can ripple out into your day and your weekend from here. Thank you so much for being here. Have a beautiful weekend.